I built a jet fighter in Starfield, and I'm going to show you how to do it too. Alright guys, we're here at the new Atlantis ship services, and we are going to break this ship down so you guys can see exactly what parts it is made of. So if you just give me a moment, I'm just going to start ripping the parts out so you can see which ones you can get from here and which ones you can get from other locations, because it's not all from one location. So give me a few moments, I'm going to rip the ship down and we will go over it. Alright, and there we go. Our ship is now in multiple pieces. The most important parts that I want to go over is that the majority of the ship can be built in the new Atlantis ship services area. Now, there are some pieces that you cannot get in the new Atlantis ship services area, but if you create your own outpost, you can find these other pieces as well. And then I believe the motors, these Slayton Aerospace motors. Now, I am Starship Design rank 4. You have to be rank 3 to get these specific ones. So this is a B-class ship. I'm sure if you really spend some time, you could make it like an A-class ship as well. You could make something very similar to it. But for the most part, I really like these Slayton Aerospace motors right here, engines rather. They have a lot of maneuvering thrust, which allows your mobility number to stay really high. One other thing that I want to let you guys know is that for any of the ships in the game, at least as far as my experience goes, any of the ships in the game, if you have a mass over 800, so we're at a mass of 780 right now, so we could actually technically add a little bit more if we really wanted to, but we're at a mass of 780 right now. Once you hit 800, you could be 801, and the game is going to want you to put on more landing gear. So for our landing gear, all we have are these two front pieces right here, and then the rear landing base serves as a piece of landing gear as well. But if you bring that number over 800, 801, then they're going to want you to add more landing gear. So you can, mess around with different cargo sizes. I actually messed around with my cockpit and went with a higher cargo cockpit just to give me a little bit more cargo without having to add on containers here. So my normal cargo is just my cockpit, and I have these two cargo holds right here that I stick onto the sides. And if you're, having an issue with weight or anything like that, you can always go in to your cargo area here, and there's some smaller ones that you can put as well. So you can see these have a mass of 52. Our other cargo pieces have a mass of 92 just because we had the space. But if you're, cramped on space, you can always get these smaller ones in there, and that shouldn't be a problem at all. So, all right, so let's just start from the back here and build into the front. I want you guys to see all the pieces. So usually what I do when I assemble one of these things is I just start with either a cockpit or a hab, which the habs are, if you go into your build menu, the habs are going to be right here. You have many different types of habs. My design requires a 2x1 hab, so you can use anything. You can use like an armory if you mess with your weapons a lot more. You can actually put in there, which I had for a little bit, a workshop, so that way you can like mess with your weapon attachments and modding and of like your suit and stuff like that. You can put in a science lab if you want to do like some research and things like that, but for the most part I just kind of put my control station in there. So we have our 2x1 hab here. You have your cockpit, which like I said earlier, I use the higher cargo cockpit. They have smaller ones. So again, if you're messing with or finding that you don't have enough space, you can always go with the lighter cockpit. They have the same thing, but just lighter. So see how that one has 200 cargo, but it's only 5 mass, whereas mine is 280 cargo, but it's 15 mass. I did that, like I said, because I had the room. I was able to get more cargo out of the cockpit. By the way, there's another thing I wanted to mention too. This is the cockpit I went with. You don't have to necessarily go with that. There's also the Magellan C2 cockpit, which you can also go with, which also looks pretty cool on the ship as well. I don't really think it goes really well with this cowling right here, this Deimos cowling. If I were to use that Magellan one, what I would do, I would go into structural over here, and I would try to find this one right here. This cowling seems to be the best fit with the Magellan C2 cockpit. But for the purposes of this video, I'll show you guys the Deimos. Well, like I said, you can build it with the Magellan cockpit as well. So there's our Deimos Phobos cockpit. So we're going to put that on. This is the Deimos cowling, which is also found in structural pieces. So it's actually right there. So Deimos cowling 4. With going with the Deimos cowling, the next thing we do is we're going to put on, oh, actually, no, it's not on this ship. So I have another ship where I put the other, there's another cowling piece. Like if you're trying to make a longer ship, you can actually put a longer cowling in there. So see, you can put like another piece there to kind of extend it, just to make the look nice and clean and like that. But for the purposes of this ship, we don't need that cowling. So what we did here is we just ran, I can't remember if we ran our reactor in the front. I think we ran, yeah, I think we ran our reactor in the front. Now you probably won't have access to this exact reactor. You see, I have to have Starship Design rank 4, and I think I had to be rank like 49 or something like that to get this reactor, because it generates 35 power, which is really good for a B-class reactor. I think there's one that's even better than this, but I think you got to get to rank 60 to get it. So I will be getting that one later on, but for right now, this is the best reactor that I can get. So let's pop that reactor on there. And then while we're at it, I just want to mention, a lot of people don't know, but you can put these little slim dockers on the bottom. A lot of people have been taking them and putting them on the top, but you can actually put them just right on the bottom. So I just slap it right on the bottom there. And that, well, of course, also is found in the docking section in the builder. So you would go into the builder and then you would find the docker section. So you can see the slim dockers available there as well. So, all right, on to the next thing. So we have our front landing gear here. So one thing that I want to mention about the front landing gear is that these HopeTech ones are not available in the new Atlantis ship services. These ones I had to get from making my own Outpost, and I'm sure there's other places you can get them as well. But when I created my own Outpost, these HopeTech ones popped up, and you have just your front 2 little landing gear pieces here. Any of the weapons, I really prefer the particle beam type weapons. These ones right now I found to be really, really good. The Disruptor Helion beam. The damage is 30 on the hull, 30 on the shield damage. And then also the other differences too, I was running the ones that use the max power of 3. So if you look down on the left side, you can see max power 4. I was using the ones that were max power 3 and just using 4 of those. But I went with this setup now using 3 that use 4 power, and they seem to be, you know, destroying enemy ships just fine. So those are my main weapon that I use on my ship. The other one I use is the little suppressor. So I use the Firebolt 4000 suppressor, and that's if I want to like take a ship over. If it's like a really big ship and I want to, you know, board it and take out the enemies inside and then just go sell the ship, I'll just use this suppressor. I'll basically take their health all the way down to almost nothing, where it's like maybe 25%, and then I'll just start hitting them with this suppressor and following them until they are disabled and their engines disable. That's the last piece. Their engines have to disable. So once their engines disable, then it'll give you an option to dock, so then you can board on and take over and then eventually pilot the ship. It has to like rebuild its grav drive and all that stuff to get it to ship services where you can sell it. But anyway, I use that suppressor to take their engines out at the very, very end of their health. So all right, on to the next piece. So next piece is going to be sorry, nope, not an engine. That's not the next piece. The next piece is actually these Stroud braking engines. Now I can't remember if New Atlantis has these or not. I want to say that they don't, but I believe if you go to Akila City, so Akila City is in the, oh god, I'm trying to remember, the Cheyenne the Cheyenne system. So you go to the Cheyenne system and then go to Akila City. I believe Akila City has these. I don't usually mess around with too many of the ship services, but I know Akila City has these, I'm pretty sure. So what we're going to do, we can't put those on just yet because I believe they only have a rear attachment. Yeah, they only have a rear attachment. So what we have to wait for is we have to wait for the engines to get mounted. So what we're going to do is we're just going to put on the rear landing bay, just so that way we have like our whole structure built and everything's good to go from there, and we can just start attaching things on. So this is the Taiyo Astroneering landing bay. This is another one of those pieces where you cannot get this from the new Atlantis. Oh my gosh, why can't I find it? Just under bays. Oh yeah, there we go. So you cannot get this from the new Atlantis ship services. But again, if you build your own outpost, which is pretty simple, you can look up videos on YouTube on how to build your own outpost. It's pretty easy. Just requires a little bit of materials. I think it's like iron and aluminum. No, maybe not aluminum. I can't remember. But anyway, there's some materials you need to build your outpost, and then you build that, and then you can get this Taiyo Engineering landing bay. The reason I like that landing bay over the other ones make your ship tall. So like if you wanted to add this, you see how there's like this arrow pointing down on the top of it? It actually has to go below something. See how it's like trying to make it go below it there? I don't like that it makes it go below it because it adds another layer of height to the ship, and we're trying to be as streamlined as possible and as minimal layers as possible to get that nice sleek look of the fighter jet. So we don't like that one, so we're not going to use that one. I like this one because it's you can enter through the back here, and it just goes right through your control station right into your cockpit. So it is literally perfect for a nice streamlined build. I actually use it on a couple other builds that I've done as well. So I really like that Taiyo Astroneering landing bay. Works really, really well. And while we're back here, what we're going to do is we're just going to add on our engines. So add our engines on here. Just do that just so that way we can get everything else added on that's required. Now the engines I went with were the Slayton Aerospace SAE 5550 engines. And the reason for that is that the maneuvering thrust, I think I mentioned earlier in the video, the maneuvering thrust is really high. It's 5340. That's really good for a B-class engine. And the reason that's also really important is that it keeps your mobility up. I've found that once you start getting around the 800 mass with some of the other B-class engines, your mobility starts going down because the engines themselves don't have enough maneuvering thrust. You would think that the engine thrust, that big number there, that 22,050, you would think that that one would be the most important number, but I've actually found that I think the maneuvering thrust is more important than the engine thrust, because you're always going to have that top speed, this top speed down here of 140. I think you can make yourself a little bit faster. I think 150 was an A-class ship I made to do 150, but then you can't have like, you know, enough reactor space, and you can't have like enough, you know, shield and things like that. So I think B-class is kind of like the sweet spot. So that's why I made this one specifically a B-class build. All right, so now that we went over the engines, the ones that I picked, you can always pick some other ones. I think I actually had some other ones. There's some that come out and like I didn't even have to use these little braking engines, which we're going to go into next. I had some other ones that were longer, so they like had more cylindrical pieces back here, and then they kind of curved into that landing gear piece. It actually looked really cool. The only problem was they didn't have as much maneuvering thrust as these ones, so I had to figure out something to, you know, make the look better in here. And I think I was like, there's like a second piece of this landing gear you can get that goes in the middle, but I didn't choose that one as well because it just kind of like goes in and just kind of like boop, just kind of stops. So I didn't like that. And then, you know, I don't know, it just didn't really do it for the looks for me. You can do that and it adds more landing gear, so that way you could have more cargo and things like that. But then you start running into, you add more cargo, and then your mobility is going to start going down, and then you're not really going to have like a very quick, nimble little jet fighter. So, and that's what we're trying to go for here. We're trying to have the most mobility possible, the most top speed possible for this, you know, size of ship. And then of course trying to keep the mass below 800. We still have good jump range, 30 light years of jump range. And overall we end up getting 1150 cargo, which is actually really good. Some of the earlier ships I built to be lightweight were really low cargo, like 260 or 3 something like that. But having 1150 cargo is good, especially when you're trying to grab resources off of other ships. You're trying to carry a bunch of ship parts around to repair your ship as you go. By the way, if you don't know that, if you're like a new ship builder or a new pilot in the game and haven't done a lot of dogfighting in the game, you have to have a bunch of ship parts on you if you get into those scenarios where there's a few ships around you and, you know, they end up taking you out and you have to repair your hull. Sometimes you wonder why that repair button doesn't come up for your hull. It's because you probably don't have any ship parts. But if you have ship parts, then you're good. I usually keep about like 20 to 30 ship parts on me. Not that I need that many, but I have the cargo, so I keep that much on me. I don't think I need that much, but anyway. So this is the Stroud braking engine. Again, I believe you find these in Akila City, and they're lightweight. And the thing is that's cool is as soon as you add them on, it adds this cool little duct right here. It just adds to the look of the jet. So we're going to add both of them in there. So you can see it's already starting to kind of come together. I was really worried that I wasn't going to find a piece that went in here that looked really cool. But once I added these on, I went to Akila City just to see if they had something that would be cool. And I think I like mouse scrolled over this one and I was just like, maybe that'll look cool. I don't know. And then I scrolled over it and I saw these like little ducks sticking out the side. I was just like, oh my God, that looks so cool. That's what I chose for the mid section here. You could put, like I said, another set of landing gear if you want, but you don't have to do that. All right, so on to the next piece. Next piece is going to be, you know what, let's just put on our little bumpers. So they say these are bumpers, but I just use them as little wingtips. These are the Deimos bumpers. You can absolutely find these in New Atlantis. They're the one that we're in right now. You don't have to go anywhere else to get these. You can get these right in New Atlantis. They're right there. The Deimos bumper, port 4 is what they're called. So we got 2 of those. Let's just slap on the other one as well. So we already kind of have our general triangular shape. If you guys are curious, the jet that I modeled this after is a jet called the Dassault Rafale. It is a French jet, and it's known to be like one of the, you know, most technologically advanced jets out there. Obviously, we have our F-35 and things like that in the United States, but in France, they have the Dassault Rafale, and it is a very, very, very cool looking jet. It's one of my favorite jets that I've ever, you know, I've liked the little Dassault Rafale since I was a little kid. All right, so on to the next thing here. So we need a grav drive. Not too picky about that. I just like to have a grav drive with a good grav drive health. So you can see this one has a health of 162. I think there's going to be some that are like more powerful than this, and we don't necessarily have to go with that, but that's just happened to be what I went with for right now, was the Aurora 13G grav drive. I believe this one you can also get in New Atlantis. I don't think there's any limitation to that. Yes, there it is right there. So you can get this in the New Atlantis ship services as well. So let's just pop that on there, and you can see we already kind of have our top layer almost done there. Just a few more pieces we got to add on. Now we have our shield here. I chose this shield because it only requires 8 power, and you can see here this is one of those ones that needs the Starship Design rank 3. So you do have to have Starship Design rank 3 for this one, but you could very easily just get a shield that, like, I think I started out with these ones when I was A class, like these Marduk ones, just because they kind of look. So yeah, that's what I was using for a little while, was just the Marduk shields. This one's actually not a bad one for being an A class, but you can see the reason it's so good for being A class, having the 760 max health, is because we have the Starship Design rank 4. You can see on the bottom left of the screen there, we do have Starship Design rank 4. So that, I don't think that one was available as I was ranking up, but let's get rid of that one because for the purposes of our build, I chose this shield right here. There actually is if you do the Vanguard, the UC Vanguard Story Line, where you go to like the masked office thing and talk to the Commander Tuwala, or Commander Tuwala, I think is his name. If you go into him, I ended up getting like this cool looking Vanguard one, but I mean, it just has it uses a lot of power. I mean, actually, I could probably use it now, but just for the purposes of this build, this is the shield that we picked. But you can, any of the ones that stick on top, you can use one of those shields. This one doesn't really look super streamlined, but you know what? Let's put that Vanguard one on. I'm curious now to see what that Vanguard one will look like on there. Oh, it definitely adds a little bit more of a stealth because it's like all black. The other one you can try to make as black as possible, but some stuff, like even this little like reactor here, you can change the color to black for your whole jet, and you still got this like goldish color on your reactor here, which is kind of annoying. All right, so anyway, off of the shield, we've gone over that. We can see that shield is going to work, and let's go on to the next thing. So next thing is going to be, you're going to need some gas. You're gonna need some gas to get some places, some fuel. So I went with these Ulysses HE3 fuel tanks, and they're not super large on mass. They don't weigh a whole lot. They're cheaper actually, and the coolest thing is that they can just snap right on the side there, just like that, and just kind of gives it that little more cylindrical fuselage type look. I mean, it doesn't look exactly like a jet fighter, but I mean, that's probably the closest thing you're going to get. Your other option would be like on other ships that I had built that had a little bit more space, I would actually go with the bigger one, the one that lets you like hook things all to the sides and the bottom, and has like a bunch more options. And you can actually see that the fuel is only a little bit more, so it gives you like 10 more grav jump fuel. I don't know, I have no problem with just using these two on the sides here. I think they look way more streamlined. I mean, it just completes the look overall. And on to the next thing, we are going to put on these 400 cm ballast cargo holds from, oh, by the way, I didn't mention these fuel tanks are available in New Atlantis. So you can get these in New Atlantis. These cargo holds you can get in New Atlantis. Let me just double check so that way you guys can see. Yes, so there's 300 cm and 400 cm. So we have on the 400 cms because, like I said, we had enough mass to deal with that. Let's put on our cargo. and they go on the back side here attached to our grav drive. Now, you don't have to, if you have whatever grav drive and reactor orientation you have, it doesn't matter. You know, these two slots are just for any type of 1x1 piece that can fit in there that's not the control station type thing, because those have to be linked together. The cockpit, the control center or control station, or whatever you end up putting in here for a hab, and then that landing bay in the back all have to go together, so that, or else you're going to get an error down in your little error checker thing. You're going to get an error in there if you know, try to put one of these down in the bottom piece there. So we're just going to keep these two up here, and onto our next piece is going to be a Deimos spine A. That's just going to sit on top of this back piece here. Right now it's our grav drive, but for you it might be something else. So we're going to put that as our first spine in here, and I am 100% certain that New Atlantis has that spine as well. So let's just take a peek and double check. Yes, it is. It's right there. So you can see Deimos spine A4. They have that piece. And then our last back piece, which is a pretty big wing for the back. I mean, it could have been a little bit smaller, but this is all the game has, at least as far as I know. If you guys know of another wing in the back that I can put on there that's not like super gargantuan like this one, I would like to be able to find that one. But hey, this one still looks cool. This is the Deimos Tail A. Again, I know it's available in New Atlantis, so we don't need to necessarily go in the menu. It's under structural, same place this was under. You just go, I think it's a little further down. You could find this one as well. Slap that on the back. You can see our look is basically done. So it's looking like a jet fighter, and that is basically done. We just have to slap on our suppressor, which we went over earlier. And that is, like I said, that one's for taking the engines down if you want to board a ship and steal it or take it over or whatnot. I only suggest doing that. I mean, you could play the game however you want, but I am on the side of the UC, so I do not take over, you know, friendly ships and things like that. But if it's like spacers or the Crimson Fleet, people like that, I definitely take over the ship and I'll steal it and go sell it. So, because they're bad guys, you know, that's what you do. Anyway, that's our ship right there. I do want to cover the front here. So I said earlier in the video I would put on the other cockpit so you could kind of get an idea of what that other Magellan cockpit looks like. So let's go ahead and just pull off this real quick here. Pull off the old cockpit, and then we're going to add on the other one, because I do like the way that the other one looks as well, and you might like it more too. So I mean, it's all just personal preference, but at least in the video I thought I would show you what the other one looks like. So now we got to go to structural and find our cowling. There we go. And we're going to put our cowling on there, and this would just bolt right on there. So just ignore that, those pieces over there. So what you can also do, if you guys don't already know, you can double click on any piece of your ship. I don't know what it is on controller, but you double click on mouse and keyboard, and then you push J for your color. And then what I do, of course, is I just choose the darkest. I don't think you even need to choose the darkest. I think you can just go the darkest. But I choose the darkest one, and I scroll it all the way left. I make it as stealthy as possible. So you can see that also looks really, really good. So I actually might keep that on there. I'm not too sure. I think the other one looks just a little bit more like streamlined on the front part here, where it kind of slopes down this way. But I mean, that's your preference. I mean, you can get both of these cockpits in the New Atlantis ship services. So that's the video, guys. I wanted to go over it so you guys can see all the parts that were put on it. Let's just take those off just for the outro of the video here, so you guys can see the ending of it here. Let's just put all those back on. Delete that, delete that. So that's it, guys. That's the ship. That is the one that I've built, and I think it looks really, really cool. And I will end the video here with some cool little you know, B-roll shots for you, so you can see it floating around in space and stuff like that. So if you haven't already, leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think of the jet fighter here, and make sure to like the video. And if you like stuff like this, my channel's still growing. I'm kind of a small channel right now. Just go ahead and subscribe, so that way you don't miss any more cool stuff like this. I'm like super big into Starfield right now, so if you like that type of thing, make sure to subscribe. Anyways, hope you guys have a good day, and yeah, have a good one.